Manufacturing is a world filled with intricate decisions, each one carrying the weight of potential profits or losses. At the heart of this decision-making process lies a concept that can make or break a company's financial future: relevant costs. So, what exactly are relevant costs? Simply put, they are the costs that directly impact a specific business decision. Think of them as the financial factors that sway your choice one way or another. They include everything from materials and labor to overhead expenses, all tied to the alternatives a manufacturer is considering. Now, why is it so crucial for manufacturers to grasp this concept? Well, understanding relevant costs allows businesses to make informed decisions that align with their goals. Imagine a manufacturer pondering whether to continue producing a product or phase it out. The relevant costs associated with both options need to be carefully weighed. If the costs of raw materials and labor for continuing production outweigh the potential profits, it might be time to say goodbye to that product. But it's not just about weighing costs, it's about making strategic decisions that maximize efficiency and minimize waste. By analyzing relevant costs, manufacturers can streamline operations and boost profitability. However, diving into the world of relevant costs isn't without its challenges. One of the biggest hurdles is accurately identifying these costs. It's a complex process that requires a deep understanding of market conditions and production costs. If a manufacturer doesn't have access to reliable data, they risk making decisions based on incomplete information, which can lead to costly mistakes. Additionally, predicting how market conditions will shift over time can be tricky. A manufacturer might decide to discontinue a product only to find that demand unexpectedly surges later on, resulting in lost profits. Despite these challenges, the importance of considering relevant costs cannot be overstated. They empower manufacturers to remain agile, adapting to changing market dynamics swiftly. By analyzing relevant costs, manufacturers can respond to fluctuations in demand, labor costs, or raw material prices, ensuring they remain competitive. Now, let's break down the different types of relevant costs that manufacturers should consider. First up, we have continue versus closing costs. When a company is deciding whether to keep a product line or shut it down, they must analyze the fixed and variable costs involved. If the costs of continuing production outweigh the benefits, it may be time to close the doors on that product. Next, we have make versus buy costs. Should a manufacturer produce in-house or outsource to a third party? This decision hinges on analyzing the costs associated with both options. If producing in-house is more efficient and cost-effective, it might be the way to go. But if outsourcing offers significant savings, that route could be worth considering. Then there are opportunity costs, which represent the potential benefits lost when choosing one option over another. For example, if a manufacturer decides to focus on one product, they must consider the revenue they forego from not producing another potentially profitable item. Lastly, we have special order costs. Sometimes, manufacturers receive unique requests for products outside their regular offerings. These special orders can come with additional costs for materials and labor, and it's essential to analyze whether the potential profit justifies the investment. Now, let's take a moment to differentiate relevant costs from sunk costs. Sunk costs are expenses that have already been incurred and cannot be recovered. Unlike relevant costs, which directly impact future decisions, sunk costs should not weigh on the decision-making process. For instance, if a manufacturer has already invested heavily in a particular project that's no longer viable, they shouldn't let that past investment cloud their judgment. Continuing to pour money into a failing project simply because they've already spent so much is a classic example of the sunk cost fallacy. When it comes to identifying and analyzing relevant costs, manufacturers often fall into common traps. One mistake is focusing too heavily on short-term gains while ignoring the long-term implications of their decisions. For example, outsourcing production to save on labor costs might seem wise now, but it could lead to quality issues or supply chain disruptions down the road. Another pitfall is overlooking opportunity costs. Manufacturers may fail to consider the benefits they're giving up by choosing one option over another. Additionally, underestimating indirect costs can skew profitability assessments. It's essential to account for all costs, including overhead and administrative expenses, to get a complete picture. So, how do changes in market conditions affect relevant costs? The answer is simple. They can shift the landscape dramatically. Changes in supply and demand can lead to fluctuations in raw material prices, labor costs, and transportation expenses. For instance, an increase in demand for a product might drive up the cost of raw materials, ultimately impacting production costs. Manufacturers must stay vigilant and regularly review their relevant costs to adapt to these changes. Now, let's talk about the role of technology in this equation. Technology has revolutionized how manufacturers identify and analyze relevant costs. Advanced data collection tools and analytics software allow manufacturers to track expenses in real time, making it easier to make informed decisions. Cost-tracking software can streamline the process of managing expenses, ensuring that all relevant costs are accounted for. Simulation and modeling tools enable manufacturers to test different scenarios and predict how changes in costs will impact their bottom line. This proactive approach helps manufacturers stay ahead of the game, allowing them to adjust their strategies based on real-time data. But it's important to note that relevant costs can vary significantly between different manufacturing industries. For example, the cost of raw materials in the automotive industry might differ from that in the food processing sector. Labor costs, equipment expenses, energy costs, and regulatory compliance costs all play a role in shaping the relevant costs specific to each industry. Finally, when faced with the decision to outsource production or keep it in-house, relevant costs become a critical factor. Labor costs, transportation expenses, equipment costs, and regulatory compliance all need to be analyzed. If outsourcing offers significant savings without compromising quality, it might be the right choice. Conversely, if in-house production can be maintained at a competitive cost, that option may provide better control over quality and production timelines. In conclusion, understanding relevant costs is essential for manufacturers striving to make informed decisions that impact their profitability. By carefully analyzing these costs, manufacturers can navigate the complexities of the manufacturing landscape, avoid common pitfalls, and remain competitive in an ever-changing market. Whether it's introducing new products, evaluating production processes, or deciding to outsource, relevant costs should always be at the forefront of decision-making. With the right tools and insights, manufacturers can harness the power of relevant costs to drive their success.